And then there were 4 as the Pies and the Demons progressed to the prelims. As we take a look at the finals so far, Kane, it's our big story. The Magpies up against the Tigers in a Friday night prelim at the MCG. It will be huge, but they did a job on the Giants, didn't they?
Almost the story of the year for me, from 13th in 2017 to a prelim final in 2018. What a job Nathan Buckley has done under pressure, injuries, adversity. The way that he's handled this playing squad this year, it just hats off to them. And once again, they were the dominant team tonight. There were some moments where, particularly during the second quarter, where the Giants came hard, but look at the stat sheet. Collingwood dominated in every area, and they should go into the prelim against Richmond with a reasonable amount of confidence.
Let's zero in on a few of the talking points out of the match. Jordan De Goey's role was critical.
Oh, he was the most dangerous player on the ground by an absolute mile, right from the start. Bunteen was the matchup from the Giants, which I wasn't sure about from the start. Why they didn't have a look at Phil Davis on him after his job on Buddy Franklin last week was a real surprise for me. Look at the split he was able to get on Bunteen on the lead. Time and time again, he just led him to the football. Now, his speed they couldn't cope with. In the end, they went to Haynes to have a go. You see that there, but he didn't have the speed to go with him again. And 3 goals, 14 disposals, perhaps a little bit wasteful in front of goals, and it could have been an even bigger night. But that's why they paid him the big dollars, and that's why they were so faithful in him and showed him so much faith to keep him at the club, and the work they've done is now paying off.
Now, the role of Braden Maynard up against Toby Green, it was the matchup that was hyped all week long, and in fact, Braden contributed to the hype.
I thought he was the best man on the ground, Braden Maynard, to keep Toby Green to the numbers that he did. 9 disposals, 1 mark, I think it was, scoreless, no goal. Assist for Toby Green on the back of his performance last week. Yes, he spoke a big game, which, to be honest, raised my eyebrows a little bit. I wouldn't have been giving my opposition any ammunition, but he's a confident young player, and for him to be able to back that up in a big final against one of the best players in the competition is a massive tick for him, and Collingwood have got an absolute ripper.
It's funny, isn't it? Because Nathan Buckley even conceded that when he told Braden Maynard he was going to be matching up on Toby Green, he said, "Don't tell anyone," and he told the world.
Yeah, that's it. It was interesting, but we love that in the media, and it's a little bit like American sports. They do that sort of stuff all the time.
It's good for us.
We're just not used to it over here.
It's good for us and it's good for fans. All right, let's talk about the Giants and their forward pressure, because I guess this was one of the positives for them.
Well, it was, and if Damien Hardwick is in the stands, which he would have been, he would have taken particular interest in this, because this is Richmond's game plan. That's like Richmond playing there what the Giants did to Collingwood, particularly in the second quarter. So they got it into even numbers in their forward line. It was 6 and 6 in there. And then the Giants forward applied this sort of pressure. Collingwood didn't cope with it. So that is what Damien Hardwick and Richmond will bring. It's what they've brought for 2 years. Can Collingwood stand up to it for 4 quarters? Because they weren't capable of doing it against a Giants side who is not as good as Richmond. And they're going to have to be prepared, and they're going to have to be better to cope with this than what they were tonight.
A quick word on the Giants season. Obviously, the past 2 years we've seen them in prelims. Now we see them out at the semi-final stage. What do they have to do?
Oh, a pretty good performance, if you ask me. I mean, if you had Heath Shaw and Patton and other players out like that, Dawson Simpson was out as well. So with a makeshift side, I thought they did particularly well. They had 5 players really underdone: Green, De Boer, Deledio, Griffin. We know about that. Williams as well for only his second game. So I thought with the challenge that they've had, they exceeded expectations.
You mentioned Ryan Griffin there, and he has announced his retirement in the aftermath of the game, led the Giants from the field. So at 32 years of age, Ryan Griffin hangs up the boots. This is a bit quirky. The role of Mason Cox in particular on the mark.
Oh, it's 1%ers, and this is the sort of things that help in finals when the sides are so close. I thought this was really clever. So every time Mason Cox could stand the mark when the Giants had an inside 50, he could. It almost surprised the Giants, who on a couple of occasions tried to run around. This one's from Green. Look, he's got no hope of having a shot for goal, so he centres it up there. And when you're 210 centimetres or whatever it is, pretty good tactic, I thought.
What did you think of Mason's role overall?
Yeah, I thought he was really slow, to be honest, to start the game. He got into it as it went further, but just the 3 marks was held scoreless. So 2 weeks in a row, he's been poor. He gets his hands to a lot of footies, but hasn't been able to capitalise on that. He's going to come up against a really strong defence next week. It's going to be Rant, it's going to be Asprey, it's going to be Grimes. So He'll need a better performance, but he is important to their structure, so they'll go with him again.
All right, let's switch to the MCG on Friday night now, and what an amazing result it was for the Demons. And the Hawks, well, they had their chances, Kane.
They did have their chances. Oh, look, I didn't think they were the better side. I thought Melbourne were clearly the better side all game, but what Melbourne have done all year is just give their opposition a little sniff, and they wouldn't want to do that next week, clearly. Hawthorn got back into it late with the first 3 goals in the last quarter, but the positive for Melbourne is that they responded really strongly, and they are starting to play their best footy to the right end of the year. They're coming in with momentum, and as I said, I don't see too many weaknesses in their game, although I think next week the Eagles can potentially expose their defence with Darling and Kennedy. They're 11-0 with those two for the Eagles, so that'll test Melbourne next week. But another pretty good finals performance. Yeah,
now this is a stark contrast, really. The way Melbourne goes about its footy, they were just daring.
No, this is the first kick-in of the game. Set play, talk down the middle of the ground. Look at their handball. Their ability to win the ground ball and then handball off that is the best in the competition. Look how lightning they move the footy there. That's one end of the ground to the other end of the ground in 10 to 15 seconds. Goal. Here it is again. They've struggled with their composure, their last kick inside 50 at times this year, but it was back at stages on Friday night. Their ball use at times was electric. They'll try and take the Eagles on next week. It won't be as easy, but once again we see chip sideways, switch the ball, handball off it and get the ball deep inside 50. Hit the lead up onto that. And then their composure, once again, that last kick inside 50 was a lead on Friday night.
There are a lot of Demons fans who are incredibly happy, Kane. Do you think they're the most exciting team from a neutral perspective to watch in the comp right now?
Yeah, they've got the support, don't they, from the supporters who have a team not playing. I think everyone's getting behind them. A little bit like what the Western Bulldogs did in 2016 and to a certain extent what Richmond have done. So with the Magpies, they've clearly been the story, and probably a 50-50 game next week, but it's a pretty hostile environment they're going to go into against the Eagles next Saturday.
I'll tell you what, this bloke is proving pretty handy, isn't he? Jack Viney, his numbers in the past 2 games are pretty impressive. Interesting as well that he's not actually spending as much time on the ground as he normally does.
Got to say that the mental strength for a player like that to go through your rehab, it's the most lonely place to be, the rehab room. So for him to be out for the majority of the year, but work on his fitness, work on his body, get himself peaking at the right time of year so he can come in and have an impact like he has done in 2 big finals. He's got to be the most mentally strong, almost player in the competition, and no wonder he's captain of that footy club.
Now, we've called this out before during the season with other players, so I guess we call it out again. Clayton Oliver.
Oh, it was a pivotal moment. I think it was stupid from Tom Mitchell. It's an absolute brain fade. You've got the footy. Look at the time of the game. Look at the score. And you turn the footy over when you've actually got possession. Yes, I thought Clayton Oliver milked it. It's not the worst one I've seen. And I probably would have done the same thing in a similar situation.
Now, what about this? Contact below the knees, and the umpire's taking a look at a couple of critical incidents here.
Well, that one's wrong. Brayshaw is already on the ground. He hasn't slid in. It's not a dangerous action. Sean Bergman almost makes contact with him. This one's the right call. So Jordan Lewis leaves his feet and makes contact below the knees. So I'm not critical of the umpire, I'm critical of the rule. You only pay that free kick if it's a dangerous action, if you are sliding in with some force and your action is likely to cause injury. What Jordan Lewis did there is not going to cause any injury, so play on. So there are 3 rules they must address in the off-season. The ruck rule's got to go, nomination, sliding below the knees, they need to adjust, they need to refigure that one. And then the 10-metre protected zone, we've spoken about it all year. Those 3 rules are so frustrating, and once again we're seeing them cost teams in finals.
And I'm sure all of that is on the agenda. It's going to be interesting to see what the Commission does at that October meeting. All right, now while we've got 4 teams left, there's 14 others now that are just talking about trades and player movement, and of course AFL.com.au is the destination for the very best coverage of the trade and free agency period. And of course on the final day of the trade period, AFL.com.au has exclusive coverage. Wednesday, October 17. Put it in your diary. Our live coverage begins from 5 p.m. We'll have exclusive access to the clubs, exclusive access to the room where the deals go down. And of course, we've got NAB Trade Radio on the air as well from the Monday after the grand final. And then on the final day, all the excitement, the drama as it unfolds. Kane, you'll be involved again. It's on AFL.com.au and the AFL Live app. Wednesday, October 17, we're live from 5 p.m. It's a pretty big deal these days, isn't it? It's moving to prime time.
It is moving to prime time, and I think it's going to be the busiest trade period that we've ever had. Already we're starting to speak about it. They're talking about 40 players, up to 40 players could change clubs this trade period, and as you said, AFL.com is the place you'll see it.
So Jared Pollock is the one that's in the news today. A 5-year deal on the table from North Melbourne, as opposed to Port Adelaide only offering 3. Is it a no-brainer for him?
Yeah, he's gone, and I don't think you can begrudge Jared Pollock for the decision that he's made. You've got one club who's desperate to get you, selling your vision, selling your role, putting 5 years on the table. You've got another club that really didn't make him feel wanted in Port Adelaide. It wasn't until halfway through the year that they even presented him with an offer. So he's left, and it leaves a massive hole in Port Adelaide's playing group, and one that they're going to have to try and fix during that trade period that you just spoke about.
All right, let's take a look at the official fixture for the prelims. It's Richmond and Collingwood at the MCG on Friday night at 7:50, and then 3:20 Eastern, 1:20 Western, the West Coast Eagles and Melbourne in the first ever preliminary final at the brand new Optus Stadium. It is going to be awesome. Ticket info on afl.com.au, because I think for both games the tickets are going to be at a premium.
Yeah, they'll go. What about Friday night? Almost the biggest prelim that I can remember. 2 massive Victorian supporter bases, 100,000 each. It's going to be hot to get a ticket, and then I love the game on Saturday as well, because the two game styles, they play attractive footy, and can't tip that one. I think Richmond win comfortably and go through to the grand final. The other one, not so sure just yet.
Now, we weren't going to do a whole show and not show you this. How good is Jeremy Howe?
Oh, he just does it again, doesn't he? I mean, the perfect sit. It's almost like you're playing kick to kick in the schoolyard. Poor old Himmelberg looked back, presented his back, and Jeremy Howe doesn't need an invitation. Thought he was strong. Thought his performance was good. I thought he had some shaky moments against West Coast the week before, but I thought he was a really solid contributor tonight.
He makes it look so easy.
Yeah, well, he's done it for years, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, Kane, thank you for that. Thank you for watching. That is the latest from us. We'll catch you next week after the prelims.